All right, and now I'm looking for Facebook to make sure that it's receiving the stream. And we should be able to start right on time. Okay, looks good. Facebook sees it. So we're now live on Facebook. We're going to be back in a second. All right, so now Facebook has a screen that says, "Don't go away, we're starting very soon." This electronic dance music, gotta go. All right, I'm just waiting for stream to show up on Periscope, and then we'll go. We have one viewer in there already on Facebook Live. Okay. All right. This looks good. All right. So, Janice, are you able to hear me right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. So, then let's get started. Okay. A little bit confusing. This is Facebook. Right. This is. So, Janice, are you able to hear me right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. So, first of all, let's get started. Rule number one, turn down the volume on your own monitor. That was confusing. That stopped me in my tracks. That sounds good. Okay, so I'm going to get started right now. Okay, good night, everybody. This is, I'm Charlie Stern. Red Blue Talk is the name of my internet channel. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope simultaneously. So Red Blue Talk is a, I don't know what you call it exactly. It's some kind of an internet channel, media thing, whatever it is. Basically, I focus on ways in which politics and government impact your own life. That's what we're all about. And I have a very special guest with me tonight. Her name is Janice Duarte. And Janice got elected to the Mount Vernon, New York City Council just last week, right? Just a week ago, right, Janice?
Yes, yes.
And she agreed to be my guest. Janice, I appreciate you being here, and I just want to jump right in, say thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So,
it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
No, my pleasure. And, you know, we were acquainted for a couple of years, and I know that this was not your first attempt to get on the City Council. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, your political journey, where it began, and what brings you to this moment?
Sure. So about 2 years ago, or a little more than that actually, so about 3 years ago, it all began really with some public presentations that were made about a development that was proposed and it was subsequently approved that's just 1 block away from where I live. And so attending those presentations, kind of very excited at first because it's nice to see investment and interest in the Mount Vernon community. And after seeing the presentations, I had a lot of concerns and questions and feeling that maybe it wasn't the best design or best plan. And so I started attending city council meetings, I started attending planning board meetings, speaking at several of them, and I wasn't just speaking and expressing my concerns, I was also doing research, and in some cases I was presenting to the city council and to the planning board research reports that were that I used to back up my concerns and my questions. And so that really was where it all started. And then shortly thereafter, in the 2015 election, I was approached and asked if I would run for city council. And at first, I was hesitant.
Time out.
Yes.
It's a good story, but I need to fill in some of the cracks. What do you mean you were approached? Who approaches you to run for this? Who says, I need you to run for the city council?
Well, at that time, it was Andre Wallace.
Okay, who was at that time? He was on the city council at the time?
No, in 2015, he also ran. That was his first time running for city council.
Okay, so the way you came at this, did you have any prior political experience? You said that there was some type of a development going up near your house. There was a lot of community activity going on. You became inspired to know more about it. You did your own homework, probably spoke out at a couple of meetings.
Yes.
You're bumping along. Had you attended any political meetings? Were you active in any political parties prior to that point?
No.
But you learned quick.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that. How does a person get involved? I mean, you're obviously a very bright person, but you didn't have a lot of political experience. How do you accumulate political experience if you don't have any?
So for me, my experience in 2015, because I also didn't make a decision to get involved until very late in the process. But how do you get the political experience? You begin by understanding what the process is and investing time in learning about the process. So, like you said, this was not my first run. So 2 years ago, when I didn't win the election, I didn't really see it as a loss. I saw it as just the start of what I could potentially do for the community. And so I became a district leader in the Democratic Party and attended their monthly committee meetings, learned about the process there.
Time out.
Okay.
I want to talk about that district leader thing because I've been a Democratic district leader and I don't really hear anybody accurately describing what it really is. I'm going to give you my definition of it and you tell me if this matches reality. Being a district leader is like you're in this political club. And every year, and this is New York centric, and we know there are people watching this all over the country. We're talking about the city council in Mount Vernon, New York, where Janice Duarte was just elected to the city council, and she's explaining her experiences with as a Democratic district leader. I was a Democratic district leader. It's a lot of legwork. You have to go out and get a bunch of signatures in the middle of a hot summer to get your candidates on the ballot, right? That's really what 90% of it is, right? And the people who are Democratic district leaders, like, tell me, Janice, who signs up to be a Democratic district leader? Why would anybody do that?
Generally, from what I've seen, they are people who are politicians themselves, or people who are very civically involved. So I guess it becomes more like a family.
There's one other category of district leader. Some of the district leaders are people who work for the city. And they're there because it's good for their jobs, right? They're trying to keep the boss elected.
Right.
Is that fair to say?
Yes, that is fair to say.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay.
Some of them are employees.
I'm trying to keep it real here on Red Blue Talk. This is what we talk about. And the same games go on the Republican side. It's the same structure.
Right.
They got district leaders too.
Right, and there are benefits to it too. I mean, I don't want it to sound all negative. You're right. 90% of the job of, we call them district leaders. That's the layman terms. Are really committee members of the Democratic City Committee. So 90% of the job is to do the legwork to get those signatures and support the candidates to get onto the ballot. But I also see it as a responsibility of myself to become familiar with my residents in my electoral district, and where I see major concerns, I see it as my responsibility to express that and bring that up to the attention of the elected leaders.
So, Janice, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well,
I just wanted to wrap up and say that I think you can make it more than what it seems to be, depending on how invested you want to become in your district leader position.
So like anything else, if you take it seriously, it can be very serious. And it is an opportunity for people that live in your immediate proximity within a district inside of a city or a town for you to share with people in your immediate community what's going on politically, what's going on in local government.
Right.
A district leader can be a conduit for information about interesting projects that may be going on in your neighborhood that touch government. So again, the purpose of this channel, Red Blue Talk, is all about how politics and government impact your own life. The reason this district leader conversation is interesting is because the district leader is sort of like, it's that person in the field who has a connection to the political organization that runs the town or village or city, right?
Right.
So if they're really doing their job, this is somebody that you could go to and say, you know, the snow removal isn't the way it should be, or the garbage collection isn't being done right, or my fire hydrant's broken. You could use that as another resource because that local district leader, if you happen to know who they are, might have access to the mayor or the local city council member or somebody else who could actually, you know, get that message across. That I think is what you're talking about when you talk about the real responsibilities of an active Democratic district leader.
Yes.
In addition to getting candidates elected.
Yes.
And raising
in
money
addition
for,
to
and raising money for the party. Right. So more about Janice Duarte. You know, I read some background. In one place it said that you went to Barnard College, and another it said you went to Columbia University, which is, Barnard is a sister college to Columbia. Where did you go to college?
Barnard College of Columbia
nice.
University.
Okay, and by any chance, were you there at any time between 1994 and 1998?
Yes.
So it's very possible that we met before because I lived at Barnard College because my wife was a residence hall director at Barnard.
Oh, okay. That's very possible. I graduated in 99.
It's very possible. So did you live in the residence halls?
Yes.
That's crazy. So I'll bet we met. So if you know my wife, Deborah, she ran a residence hall. You know that big tower that they have there at Barnard College?
Yeah, Salzburger.
Right. She was responsible for that whole building. And we lived in an apartment at the corner of 108th Street and Broadway. I'm sorry, 110th Street. You remember Ollie's, the Chinese restaurant?
Yeah, yes.
We lived above Ollie's.
Oh, really?
Right. So your RA worked for my wife.
Okay.
Small world.
Small world, indeed.
So Barnard, what did you study at Barnard, and how did that prepare you for what you're doing today?
I was a psychology major, and I actually did my thesis at Columbia with the psychology department there. I was working with a graduate student in Walter Michel's and Carol Dweck's department on stereotyping, and we were looking at specifically stereotyping in school children and the processes, trying to understand the process and how children, what propensities do you have, or what characteristics do you have that would lead you to be more likely to stereotype over other characteristics.
And then what type of work did you do professionally after leaving Barnard?
Well, I knew from my experience undergrad that I didn't want to go into research because half of my psychology courses were research. And while I enjoyed it, it was clear to me that it was not something I wanted to pursue professionally. So after that, I actually went into marketing. I got a job as a research analyst at Standard & Poor's. And worked with them for about 5 years. In that time period, I went up the scale and became a marketing manager in the structured finance department, which covered asset-backed securities, mortgage-backed securities, CDOs, collateralized debt obligations, and so forth.
You spent a bunch of years doing like financial research, financial analysis type work, got a lot of private sector experience, and so tell me how you made the pivot into public service, community service type. And do you still work in that realm? Do you still work in finance?
No, I don't work in finance anymore. After S&P, I went to work for a bond insurance company called Financial Security Assurance, and I worked in their communications department and did marketing for them as well.
Got it.
After that, I worked. I came I say I returned to Westchester. I've always lived in Mount Vernon. I was commuting from Mount Vernon into the city. But professionally, I began working with small businesses in Mount Vernon. So I worked as a business director for a small communications coaching company, and then after that, I was project manager for an interior designer.
Let's take the train back to Mount Vernon. Okay, so you've been elected to the Mount Vernon City Council.
Yes.
One part of your story, just a part of your story that I've read now in a couple of different places, is you have a background. Your family background is Portuguese.
Yes.
And you are, and it's not exactly clear to whether you're the first Portuguese elected official in Westchester ever, or since 1955, or the first woman. I've read all three of those, and I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So which is it?
So let me clarify. In 1950, back in the 50s, I believe there was a couple of Portuguese Americans who were elected to the school board as school trustees.
In Mount Vernon?
In Mount Vernon.
Okay.
And so since then, since 1955, I am the first Portuguese American elected to a public office in Westchester County, not in the state, but in Westchester County.
Right.
And the first female in New York State. Well, we've had other officials like Jack Martin's in the state senate. He's from Nassau County, and he may be the only other example at this time. But yeah, so first female Portuguese American in the state.
So that's a point of, personal pride, personal achievement. I'm sure your family and the Portuguese-American community in Mount Vernon is very excited and proud of you.
They're very excited. Yes, they are. And I'm proud of them.
What do you think, if any, social implications stem from this victory? Is this a part of a movement? Is there an active Portuguese-American community? Do you think that this reaches into the Brazilian community, which I know also speaks Portuguese, but it's ethnically somewhat different? What do you think of the implications of this?
So there's on several levels. Starting with the Portuguese community, there is a very active Portuguese community in Westchester County, and it's been a very active Portuguese community for over 100 years, which to me is a little surprising why they haven't moved into or transitioned into being politically involved. They've always been supportive, and so the Portuguese community has always been sort of on the margins, but they've never actually jumped into the political arena, despite their presence in the county. But besides that, there is an organization called NIPALC, which is the New York Portuguese-American Leadership Conference, and it is a consortium of Portuguese organizations. They currently have over 60 members, and in the state of New York, they represent over 180,000 Portuguese Americans. So we are a growing community. We are a substantial community. We contribute tremendously wherever we are, business-wise, property-wise, and I think that this, I hope, inspires more Portuguese Americans to consider breaking through whatever barrier or cultural barrier has existed, breaking through that to become politically involved.
So I'm speaking with Janice Duarte. Janice was elected to the Mount Vernon, New York Board of Education just last week.
City Council.
I'm sorry, I apologize. I was on autopilot there. To the Mount Vernon City Council, Mount Vernon, New York, just last week. And we're talking about her background, her connection to the Portuguese-American community, and of course, Janice, you grew up in Mount Vernon. My understanding is that you attended school in Bronxville.
I graduated from Pennington Grimes, and at the time my parents wanted to put me in private school. The school system at that time was beginning, we were beginning to see the signs, as we now know the state of the school district.
Right.
So my parents wanted to put me in private school. We looked around, and ultimately it was just economically made more sense to tuition into Bronxville.
So what I find interesting about this is that you have what I consider to be like a textbook Mount Vernon experience. I mean, what you're describing is a story that I've heard from dozens, hundreds of people over the years in many different generational age brackets, where maybe they went to the elementary schools for a few years and then they moved, or they went to the elementary schools for a few years and went to private school, or they, in your case, elementary school for a few years, and then parents tuitioned into a neighboring district. What do you? What?
Oh, was that or Catholic school? And I didn't want to go to
Catholic school. So what do you think is like, you know, and if you could just tell me about your own direct Mount Vernon experience, how did that affect you in terms of your friends and your family and your feeling of connectedness? Because it's remarkable. Here you are, a grown-up, successful adult, you know, capable of supporting yourself. You're doing great. You could live any place you want, but you're choosing to live in Mount Vernon and have an active role in the governance of this community. So tell me how that comes about, because that part of the story is not common.
So we have a family business in Mount Vernon. We've been in business for over 30 years, and so for us, we like the convenience of living near where we work. Our workroom is near the Fleetwood train station, and we live in one of the pre-war buildings by the train station. So there's a tremendous amount of convenience as to the location, right? For me, I went to school in the city. I worked in the city for several years, so the train, having access to the transportation was key, and then also having the family business nearby.
Janice, time has flown by here, and you know, there's a game I like to play. Let me just like bring back the music here. And the name of the game, if I can get this going. Ah, there we go. It's working. The game, all right, I'll get to become a better TV producer as this goes along. But the name of this game is 33 Questions. It's a game that I've adapted from a series of internet videos that was created by Vogue magazine, where they ask 73 questions of famous celebrities. So what I've done is adapted that, and it's now called 33 Questions. And I'm going to ask Janice 33 questions so we can learn a little bit more about local celebrities, which are our local politicians. Janice, are you ready?
Okay.
You look thrilled. You look thrilled. You look like you'd really rather end the interview right now. So here it goes.
No, this is fine.
Okay,
this should be fun.
Okay, so here's the questions that I have for Janice Duarte so we can get to know you a little bit better. Janice.
Yes.
How's life treating you in Mount Vernon?
Wonderfully.
Yeah, it should be treating you pretty well right now. You're the high vote getter in a local election, so I think it's treating you pretty well right now. Janice, what's your favorite season?
I love the Christmas season.
What do you eat for breakfast?
Eggs and toast.
If Janice Duarte was in a band, what would be the name of the band?
Janice and the Heartbreakers.
What's your favorite fast food restaurant?
Oh, I don't really have one. I like Lincoln Barbecue. You can get your barbecue chicken, rice, and beans in 10 minutes.
So Janice is talking about Lincoln Barbecue, which is a great restaurant on Lincoln Avenue in Mount Vernon, New York. I've eaten there. Excellent. I'm going to cross out where did you grow up, because we just talked about that. You grew up in Mount Vernon. What do you like best about Mount Vernon?
The people.
And what's the one thing in the world Janice cannot live without?
Love.
What's your favorite sports team?
The home team or the underdog?
Your favorite sports team?
Local Yankees.
So tell me, Janice, what is Richard Thomas really like?
I don't know.
Guess you're going to find out.
Yes.
Richard Thomas is the mayor of Mount Vernon, and Janice was just elected to the city council. So what would your last meal on earth be?
Probably codfish.
I like codfish too. What's your favorite TV show of all time?
Gosh, I don't have a favorite. I love so many of them. Friends, Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah, that's a pretty safe
Seinfeld.
Answer. Pretty safe answer. If you could star in any Broadway show, what would it be?
Oh, you know, I had a tough time with this question. I don't know.
Janice, you're not really supposed to give away that I gave you the questions in advance, but okay.
No, but I watched Vogue's questions.
Right.
I really don't know this one.
I think that works. I think that question works better when you're actually an actress. Okay, so I'll take that out the next time I do this.
Yeah.
What's the best thing about the internet?
Oh, it's on all the time.
What's your favorite TV commercial?
I love the Doritos commercials, especially during the Super Bowl. I think they're hilarious.
So Thanksgiving is coming up. Cranberry sauce or stuffing?
Cranberry sauce.
Who's the most famous person that you follow on social media?
I follow Beth Comstock. She's with GE. She's a she's a thought leader, and I really enjoy her interviews. She interviews various authors, talks about various topics in business and in general. So
tonight you have to also follow Red Blue Talk. I got the address right there underneath the screen at Red Blue Talk on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. We are simultaneously streaming on 3 different platforms, which I don't think anybody else is doing on a local level. What is a place that you would like to visit, Janice?
So many, but I haven't been to Rome. I would really love to visit Rome.
What do you think of that election process you just came through?
I think you have to respect it. You have to invest time in getting to know it, and you have to respect it because the election process has evolved up until this point, and it will continue to evolve, but I believe we need to understand all of the elements of it which have evolved to this point to protect the people in certain ways. So I think you need to invest time in learning about it and respect the process.
What was the worst thing about running for office?
Worst thing. The war of words, when I believe it really should be about the war of ideas and issues.
What advice would you have for young women interested in running for office?
I would say don't be afraid of it. It is worthwhile. You get to be connected with the community on a totally different level. And if you're really passionate about serving your community, you shouldn't be afraid of it. I would encourage them to be fearless, to be bold, to stay focused on your message, because you'll have a lot of people in your ear trying to give you advice, which is great, but in that process, be true to yourself and remain authentic.
Who are your 3 favorite actors?
I don't have favorites. I love Lucille Ball because she makes me laugh. I love Helen Mirren because I think she's just a fabulous actress. I love Matt Damon and the Bourne series, Denzel Washington, obviously. I don't know.
3 was enough. What's your favorite board game?
Backgammon.
And if you could play backgammon with any politician, who would it be?
Abraham Lincoln.
What's your favorite comic book?
Peanuts.
What is the first website that you visit each morning?
It's never the same. Google.
Who is the first U.S. presidential candidate that you voted for?
President Bill Clinton in his 2nd term.
Do you prefer Skippy peanut butter or Jif?
Skippy.
Hillary or Bernie?
I sympathize with Hillary. Having gone through this process as a woman, I sympathize with Hillary, and I appreciate Bernie and his conviction. He's very dynamic.
Beyonce or Rihanna?
Beyonce.
What's the best part about living in Mount Vernon? I think I might have asked you that already, but
yes.
What's the best part about living in Mount Vernon?
The people.
What's the worst thing about living in Westchester County?
Property taxes.
What's the best thing about being a city council member?
Well, I'm not one yet. I'm councilwoman-elect. I don't start until January. So I am looking forward to what I hope would be the best part of being a council member, and that's working with my colleagues to legislate solutions that I hope will improve the city.
So Inauguration Day is going to get here before you know it. Thanksgiving, Christmas, January 3rd or whatever, you're going to have an inauguration. The ceremonies are going to end, and on some cold night in January, you're going to find yourself sitting in a conference room with your colleagues on the city council, Delia Farquharson, who got elected with you, and Marcus Griffith, who got reelected, and Lisa Copeland, and Andre Wallace, and the mayor might be there. What do you do? What now?
Oh, on that first night? What now? Well, it's going to all depend on the preparation we establish between now and then. I've been waiting for, I've taken a little bit of time off after the election. I needed to decompress. But I intend to sit down with the mayor, and I'd really like to have a walkthrough, sort of like a tour of the city departments. And really get a sense of what the state and the needs are before I sit down with everyone in a room.
Janice Duarte, new city council member in Mount Vernon, New York, thank you for being my guest. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you for about a half an hour. Thank you for playing 33 questions. And for everyone else that tuned in and watched the program, thank you for spending a little bit of time with us. This is Red Blue Talk once a week. On Sundays, I post a new vlog. And then on Wednesdays, I do this live stream, and I try to talk about the ways in which politics and government impact our own lives. Again, Janice, thank you for being my guest. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. This was fun.
Okay. I hope you'll come back again after you have a little bit of experience on the city council, and you can tell us what's really going on inside those city council meetings. Thanks.
You bet.
Good night.
Thanks, Charles. Good night.